apologize if there's a lot of background noise. I can't help that the road is not smooth, so I'll just try to scream the whole time. But I'm not angry, I'm just making a video. This, I think we're going to entitle something like Response to an Irish Nationalist. So, if you haven't already checked out Twitter at Jokull, Jokkull, we've got 4 infographics up there that form a nice little slideshow. Now, eventually I could use those, maybe redesigned in sort of a landscape form. I could use those on a video, what is the deep left, to try to explain to people, because over the course of this road trip, what I've learned is nobody knows what my channel is about, and that's my fault, because from my perspective, I talk about what my channel is about, and there's basically 4 videos you can watch: top 50 right-wing lies, top 50 minoritarians, why the left can't meme or lie. I should probably retitle that video, it's hard to say. And then there's a 4th, pick anyone, like deep right versus deep left, or any one of those. Intro to the channel. I've done 5 intros to the channel. You can watch the first episode of the Jokull podcast back in, 2018 or something. Maybe even 2019. I might be getting my years mixed up here. But you could watch probably 4 videos. It would take you 4 hours, but you would understand what the channel's about. But most people are not going to invest 4 hours of time into just finding out what something's about. They want to learn within 5 minutes what something's about, and then decide whether they want to invest 4 more hours into that thing. So that's the point of the infographics. And the person who made the infographics for me describes herself as an Irish nationalist. And so we started talking about 2 things primarily. One is seeking the right path in our life, and number 2, the question of nationalism. Now, you could say those things are intertwined, because if you believe your mission in life is to be a nationalist, then that's going to impact maybe the way that you deal with religion. It's going to impact the way that you interact with your family. It's going to interact with the way that you interact with your neighbors or society or politics. So it's not that the 2 things are not touching or not tangential to one another. They are certainly, they do, the one impacts the other. But I found myself at an impasse as far as the nationalist issue, because I said, I'm not a nationalist. I can't really help you there. I could argue against it, but I can't really help you there. Maybe we can try to focus on the personal. And that's basically my whole take as far as nationalism goes, is nationalism in the main, in its origin and in its current theory, the word, what it means ultimately, and you can try to change the definition if you want to. If you are loyal to a word, then we're not the same. I'm not loyal to a word. I'm not loyal to the word Christianity. I'm not loyal to the word nationalism. I'm not loyal to any word. Because to me, what's important is the meaning. So when I say I'm not a nationalist, I mean that the meaning, the popular meaning of that word does not accurately describe my position. Now, if you wanted to change the word, we could change every word in the dictionary. We could change the word G-O-O-D to mean something that's really evil and bad, and we could change the word E-I-V-I, or am I spelling things wrong? E-V-I-L, we could change that word to mean things which are really awesome. Just like people say, oh man, that was sick. That was sick, man. Well, contextually, the word sick there means it was cool, it was good. But the dictionary definition, sick is bad. So I'm not really concerned about the semantic labels. I'm trying to use language pragmatically. I'm trying to use it in a way that it makes sense. Now, if you want to go to the Latin and say, well, nationalism is from natio, meaning birth. And so if you like to give birth, you're a nationalist. Well, maybe you're the etymologically principled person here, and we could go down that rabbit hole. But I'm talking about the fact that if I say the word McDonald's, I'm not talking about a Scottish clan. I'm talking about a fast food restaurant. If you're so pedantic that you can't have this conversation with me, then I apologize. I think that's more of a you issue than a me issue. I'm trying to operate within a world that is communicable to people who are not, invested in some kind of etymological discourse. I'm trying to communicate with people who understand words as they are popularly used, because I think that's the only way to convert people to a position, is to use words as they're popularly used. Now, caveat, when I use the term deep left, that is meant to be a provocative term. When people hear the word left wing, they have a lot of assumptions about what that is. I try to undermine those assumptions to really undermine the entire concept of politics. Okay, so I think there are exceptions to that rule. Now, if you want to use the word nationalism in a provocative sense, make your case for that. But I'm going to make my case now of why I'm going to define nationalism. Nationalism is a ideology which says that the state should serve the people, right? But here we have to define who the people are. And basically, there's two forms. There's the civic and the ethnic. And at some point, they can become confused. They can become aggressive toward one another and opposed, depending on the situation and the context. But the idea that the state should serve the people, whoever the people are. Operative word should. Should, okay? Well, I should be a millionaire. I should have $1 million. I should be driving a nicer car, probably have multiple cars, have multiple houses, really nice houses, actually. I should have all those things. Now, me saying should, well, you can see the problem there, right? If I go around shoulding, and I should you, and I should me, and we should each other, well, then that's just a bunch of should. That's a pile of should. And there's no actual plan, there's no actual there's no actual doing or acting or reality to those shoulds. So we need to take a break from the shoulds, and we first need to describe the world as it is. Before we can have prescriptions, we need to have descriptions, and the two have to inform each other. We can only learn about what we want to learn, and we can only decide to do things that we know. So I can decide to drive north, south, east, or west. I can't, plow through platform 9 3/4. I can't, drive into an invisible wall if I don't know that that's actually a magical wall, As far as I'm concerned, the wall is solid. But say Harry Potter appears and he tells me, actually, that wall it's invisible. You can drive through it. Okay, well, now I have new information, and therefore I can take new action. But actions, information, they're dependent on one another. So we can't just say should. We have to know what actually is going on. So what is going on? What do we know about the world? What we know about the world is and has been for a long time incredibly centralized, and it's becoming more incredibly centralized. There's no period in history in which the world was more centralized than it is now. And of course I'm speaking about the human species, I'm speaking about morality and information, and I mean the internet, right? Now, in this process of centralization, we've got a problem, because as you centralize more and more, what you do is you monopolize power in a smaller group of people. And for everybody who's outside of that, they feel powerless, and they feel deprivation of freedom. They feel the deprivation of agency and sovereignty. And this is upsetting. So how do you manage that? This is kind of a crisis of agency. How do you manage the fact that people are feeling more and more that they don't have agency? They're effectively enslaved. And when people are enslaved, they start doing dramatic things, right? We know that when an animal is cornered, when it feels like it has no options, it will act in unpredictable ways. So how do you manage this from the perspective of the people who are controlling all the power? You tell them, actually, no, you've got more freedom than ever before. And so they'll say things like, well, forget about the fact that fertility rates are dropping, people aren't able to have as many kids as they even want to. Forget about that. You have sexual freedom. Forget about the fact that, people's physical health is declining, and therefore you're deprived of something that we kind of intuitively want in the body. You actually have all of this freedom you can eat whatever you want. You can eat whatever you want. And you've got cars and you've even got like electric scooters in Walmart. You can scoot around in your little scooter. You can go get a surgery. You can get plastic surgery. You can get liposuction. You can get your tubes tied. So there's all these things, these so-called freedoms that are offered to us in order to disguise or distract from the fact that most people are not able to really address what I think are much more fundamental and basic needs. So this is a big problem. Now, how do you address this? Well, you have to be knowledgeable about what's going on. You have to understand. You have to be realistic about it. If your model for society is going to collapse, and when it does collapse, the people who will come out on top are the people who are at the bottom of our society now. That's a very appealing idea, and that idea has been around for a long time. In early Christian texts and scripture or whatever, they say the first shall be last and the last shall be first. You go back further to, say, Judaism, and you have the concept of Jacob and Esau. Esau's the firstborn son. He deserves, according to the law of the land at the time, he deserved the inheritance, this patrilineal inheritance. There's a primogeniture, that's the term. Prime meaning the first, geniture meaning birth, so the firstborn gets the inheritance. But Jacob says, nope, the first shall be last, the last shall be first. You go back even further before that necessarily. I think probably Jacob and Esau was the earlier one. But another example would be like, I think it's the many-colored coats. Is that Joshua? The many-colored coats, where he's kind of the son who's enslaved, but he ends up being the highest son, right? So this kind of switch back and forth, it's an old concept, and it's now appearing as the world says society is going to collapse, and the people who are worst off, the people who are most defiled, the people who are most scapegoated, those people are going to be on the top. I don't think that's really an accurate model. I think it's appealing. I think it has this kind of spiritual, mythological, paradoxical power to it. It has a kind of emetic power, but I don't think it's a good model for society. I also don't believe in this pressure cooker idea. I think it's an idea that is taken into account, but I don't think it's an accurate model of society. I don't think it's accurate to say that, well, things are getting bad, things are getting worse, and therefore we can just expect that with enough pressure built up, eventually there's going to be a dramatic event, a revolution, where the current trend of things just reverses. You also have a similar model called the pendulum model, which says things go back and forth. We get more technological, we get less technological. Well, that's not true, because we've had writing, okay, even deeper than that, we've had human language for thousands, perhaps even 2 million years. We don't know how old language is because it's oral, there's no record of it. We don't have any archaeological findings that would indicate if a oral language or even sign language, perhaps,